But sometimes as business owners, we think like, oh, well, that's going to be abused. There's going to be a huge cost to this. And I think that's the difference between like wanting to grow like a cash flow company versus growing a brand. You know, if you're growing a brand and something that you want to occupy that space in people's hearts and minds, you know, you're prepared to make that additional investment in customer service.
It's me, Chase Harmer, your host, and I'm here with Jason Kryski, the man that built the straw house out in Canada. Now, it is not a house that you can blow down with one single puff. This is a big, gigantic house built just crazy, crazy, crazy. This guy is doing amazing things all over the world, working with gigantic clients, building huge brands. I'm so excited to have Jason on today to open up his box of tricks and let us in a little bit. So with Jason, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Chase. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Well, you know, we had an opportunity to sit down and have some coffee while we're in San Diego and, you know, get to know each other a little bit. And you have a son, I have a son, and we have a lot of similarities in that way. But, you know, everyone's really curious how you built such an amazing company and you guys are just crushing all day long, every day. So tell us a little bit about you know, how you came to build this company and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in digital now for about 10 years. Got into the space through email, through like kind of like affiliate CPA marketing. I was like, I was a nerdy kid. So I was like, started out as like a deliverability engineer, you know, getting that email into those inboxes.
Oh, yeah.
And then over time, like started to really fall in love with the marketing side. So I started writing subject lines and, you know, basically managing lists and monetizing those for people. And then I started to see a trend, you know, where like the email started to get harder to deliver. And, you know, Google started coming out with machine learning and Gmail. And I saw these challenges and I was like, well, we should probably start sending email to people who want it, you know, or at least like categorizing that appropriately. And, you know, my kind of partners in that business didn't really agree. They're like, hey, we're making money doing this thing. It's good. And I'm like, I was trying to build something for the future.
When you say the email, were you like spamming or was it like?
We call it commercial bulk email. So like we were following all the legal rules, but we were like really had just enormous lists of, you know, millions of people. We're just blasting out like auto insurance, you know, early e-com, you know, stuff like that. It was pretty untargeted and, you know, it would stuff that would get filtered out to like the bulk mail bin. So, you know, the amount of money that we were earning, so we call it eCPM, the amount of earnings per 1,000 pieces of mail delivered was pretty low in comparison to kind of like how things exist now.
Sure.
So about 7 years ago or so, I started to see like, you know, the rise of Facebook and these social platforms that had all this data. So they knew a lot about you, they knew your behaviors, and you could start to see like targeting and then how, so part of it was targeting the data. The other part was like putting ads natively in people's experiences where they were spending their time.
Sure.
And I could see the power of that. So I started building some technical infrastructure, and then I ended up meeting my co-founder of Straw House, Naveed. We met on the internet, but we lived in the same city in Canada, kind of randomly.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was kind of like the technical and, you know, business part of that business, and he was really the media and creative side. So we decided to form Straw House, and like the name didn't mean anything. I think someone owned the domain, and, you know, we made the name up, you know, just with no real purpose behind it. And
you
then
have
like
the wolf on there though. You do have the wolf.
Oh yeah. Happened, like a little bit later, like after we started to kind of crush it, we're like, oh, we're like the big bad wolf now. We can blow your house down. And that happened a little bit, maybe like 2 or 3 years in, we kind of adopted that.
Okay.
But, you know, basically we started out doing like CPA affiliate marketing on Facebook when that was still cool, or they were cool with that. And then we realized that there was an opportunity to take that performance business model and apply it to, you know, venture-backed companies and like digitally native brands that weren't from the performance space.
When you say the performance model, you mean you basically they're paying you based on performance, essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're using our capital to buy the media, and then we're charging our clients based on the conversions that come in. So we fix the cost of acquiring a customer based on whatever works for that company, 40
Sure.
bucks, 50 bucks, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of arb the difference between what it actually cost us to acquire the customer and what they wanted to pay. So in that, we like de-risked these companies and their marketing efforts. So a regular agency, they take a percentage of the money that you spend, regardless of where your targets are at or what's happening. So for us to work with somebody who wasn't familiar with that, they're like, so you're going to spend the money, your money, and you're going to do all the work, and you're going to make it so I can't lose any money. And I'm like, well, yeah. So that was like mind blowing for so many people.
Yeah.
And so with that, we were able to scale a number of different, digitally native consumer product companies, primarily leveraging, Facebook and later Instagram. And now we do like YouTube and Google and a bunch of other channels as well.
Is there a certain type of client that you are going after? Now, I know you said that when you started this, it was mind blowing to these people, right? But it's not a new concept, right? You were just doing it to a new.
Exactly. Yes. So we were taking something that existed in the kind of affiliate CPA world, and we're just applying it to a world that was really just familiar with agencies. And so it's still like, we still run into people that we talk to, and they're like, they think it's too good to be true. They're like, how does this work? Why would you do this?
Oh.
And I think it gives us a really strong competitive advantage in the market, and it forces us to really be more performant and ensure that we're able to really drive results. I don't like the idea of just doing the work for the sake of doing the work. We want to be able to drive the outcomes that the companies that we work with want.
Sure. Now, are you working with all brands that are B2C, or do you do B2B as well?
I don't think we do any B2B. It's really all B2C. Yeah. So we really focus on like storytelling and, moving a customer or user through a journey to be able to purchase a product.
Sure.
Sometimes they're like, kind of low cost things, below like $20 or $30, but normally like the average order values that we work with are kind of in that $100 to $200 range. And so that journey can take, a week or 2 weeks. And we're trying to tell a story as to why somebody will want this product in their life.
Obviously I see the B2C because it's such a huge market, right? You have all these people that want to buy products. What are the main differences? Obviously, because I'm a B2B company and there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening to this podcast that are probably B2B as well. What's the main differences for a guy like you tackling a B2B as opposed to a B2C?
Well, I can only kind of speak to like theoretically the differences because we don't do a lot of that B2B marketing. But really, I mean, marketing is really you're still moving someone from emotional state A to emotional state B. We all want to feel better about what we're doing. A friend of mine, Paul, just had like a really good Facebook post yesterday where he was talking about, like if you're selling insurance, to an entrepreneur, you're not just selling them, something insurance. You're selling them, surety. You're selling them the ability to feel like their family's going to be okay if something, bad happens to them,
right.
or if you're selling them an emotional need to be met inside. Mm-hmm. And when we're looking at a business, that's sometimes a little bit trickier because like people are looking at like what they need in their business in order to be, take it to the next level and be successful. But like you can almost transfer that that emotional well-being for a person into like what's that well-being and need for a company, and being able to market it accordingly.
Now, I mean, we didn't really get into it a little bit, but your background, you really are kind of like this. You're really deep, right? You have all these, and you're a writer, right? So do you do a lot of copy? Is that kind of like what's the main hook for you? What's the main?
So I'm like I think in terms of marketing and moving people from those emotional states and moving people along to a place of like kind of actualization or fulfillment. I don't really, my personal journey has been like, how do I move from being a marketer and kind of a technologist to like a business owner and somebody who's building a company and building, shareholder value and enterprise value.
Yeah.
and thinking more strategically about, the work that our team does and how we can best, drive value for other companies in the market. And so that's where I've shifted a lot of my time and attention and focus. So now I spend a lot of my time really just thinking about, where is the market going? Where are the platforms going? How do we best serve our clients and make sure that our company's best positioned to capture that in a way that's like strategically leverageable?
Right.
So like if I look at like even the like kind of agency model, or like even our performance kind of venture model, as things that are really kind of compressing over time. So as platforms like Facebook and Google add more and more features that make targeting customers easier and easier. One of the things that came up from some conversations I was having last week at an event was that it's quite possible that within the next year, Google will allow for like CPA-based billing. So
Right.
you put in your target CPA, and as opposed to being charged on a per click or CPM basis, they charge you on a conversion basis. So there's going to be like more and more pressure from those companies that try and squeeze more of this middle ground that we're operating in. So I'm trying to think of like, okay, what are the opportunities for us to even further help companies and take care of things that these platforms aren't going to be encroaching on?
Sure.
Yeah, so that's where most of my thinking and time goes.
No, totally. And because you really are, this is why Straw House is so successful also, because you guys really make impactful, make it very impactful for the clients that you guys serve, right? It's not just, pushing traffic and doing all these other things. Now you had made a point about where's the market going, right? So now I know that you think about this all the time, but where do you think the market's going in the processing world and in the financial services world where I live? It's constantly changing, constantly adapting. There's been a lot of new things that are happening inside of your world. Where do you think everything's headed? I mean, I know that all this shitstorm with the trial and all this other stuff, but where do you think stuff's going in your world?
Yeah, so when we look at like a lot of the success that we've had historically over the last 5 years, it used to be a lot easier to have one brand or one product that could really deeply saturate an entire market, and on a really broad basis. So you would have like, so we would do a lot of work in health and wellness. We'd have like one company or brand that would sell a product that would, we probably served, 6 or 7 billion impressions to, over the course of a year and a half. And like, grew that company to, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And what I'm seeing now is that because of the ease of creating consumer product companies, like, if you had 20 grand, and the wherewithal to spend learning how Shopify works and like, figuring out some Facebook ads, you can go to a third-party manufacturer and like design and manufacture a product, and then, inventory, like minimum orders are really low, and you can launch that. And if you're a person that's in that market, you can really talk to the people that are like you that want to have those products. So like the ease of creating those kinds of companies and brands has never been easier, and it's only going to get easier further. Right. So my kind of prediction is like that brands will be smaller, but like way more of them. So the target demographic, or like the niche, or for a particular consumer product company, might only be a demographic of like 10 million people or 8 million people. But that brand's going to be really deeply connected from a ideological and lifestyle standpoint, where they're producing content that these people like to read, products that really identify with part of their life, and the ability to like tell a story where these people identify with this brand as part of their lifestyle is going to be much easier.
Are you getting a lot of that information from the Facebooks and all that? Are you kind of gathering that information, that intel from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a hypothesis, distilled from looking at a lot of different kinds of proof points. And I could be wrong, but what we are seeing is that companies that are growing to reasonable sizes, that are maybe exiting, that they're addressing niches that exist that like the large companies aren't paying attention to.
Right.
So one of my like favorite examples over the last couple of years is this company called Native Cause, which made a natural deodorant focused on like millennial females.
Called
And
Native Cause? Native Cause?
nativecos.com.
Okay.
And they were able to grow that company within 2 years with minimal capital investment to a $100 million exit to Procter and Gamble.
Wow.
Crazy,
Wait,
right?
this is your baby here that you helped?
No. We evaluated that the founder of it when he was maybe 3 or 4 months in.
Wow.
And he's like, hey, can you help us with our Facebook ads? And so we look at what he's doing, and he was running like a pretty good ad to like a listicle, like a top 5 natural deodorants for women.
Yeah.
And then, his was the top one. And then the bottom 4 were like Amazon affiliate links to other companies.
Gotcha.
And then it was pretty straight e-com, but he was using some like direct response kind of affiliate like tactics to be able to funnel users into that purchase. But he wasn't super aggressive in like upsells and wasn't like, beating people over the head as far as like, squeezing every last dollar out.
Right.
He was basically breaking even and then rolling enough of the profit back in to continually grow the business. Yeah. And so I think they sold that when they had like about 1 million or so customers, and right. a big portion of those were in continuity, like where they sign up for like automatically receiving their deodorant every month because people use that product.
Absolutely.
And that was a market that like obviously got really good penetration. Their CPAs were really low. I was surprised how cost effectively they were getting customers for, because there was a pent up demand in that kind of vertical or that niche for like millennial females to have a natural deodorant that didn't have like aluminum and parabens and those kinds of products. Right. But if you're going to Walgreens or Target or wherever, there wasn't anything on the shelf that was reflective of that had a brand that these women identified with.
Right.
So they had all this traction online, and then Procter and Gamble takes a look at it and says, hey, this is actually a pretty big vertical, and then we can like put this in 100,000 different stores and increase the volume of sales from probably maybe if they were at like maybe 15 million in revenue to like 100 million in revenue basically overnight, just by increasing the distribution. So I'm a big advocate of like being able to identify a market and a product that serves a certain audience where they can feel like connected to something that's talking about the same things that they care about in their language, and right. then being able to scale that up.
What is the like when you're sitting there thinking about these things? I mean, there's probably a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening going, hey, you know what, I would love to penetrate into the market. I'd love to get into these new things. When you're thinking about these things, what is it about, your thought process that makes you, snap your fingers? I mean, is there something that you kind of like, you take yourself to a certain place to get these ideas, or is there?
I mean, I guess that's a really great question, man. If I was a little bit more self-aware, I'd probably have a better answer for it. But I really think about like what drives value for people and what makes people happy and what kind of brings them to like this actualized place.
Right.
And so I'm always trying to think about like what's going to really drive value, what's really going to drive value for people. Like what is really going to, when people, if it's, I'm again mostly focused on product marketing. So what's going to fulfill both like maybe like an actual like use or need, and then also something that's going to like help actualize them as a person and make them feel much better about it.
Because that's really the key, right? Being able to relate, making the person feel like it's something that they really wanted, like personable, right? It's like part of that process is having it really relate to them. Not just it's a product that I need, but somehow relating it to them, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, is this something that they kind of aspirationally, if they buy this product, does it help move them forward to who they think they are about themselves? Is it like?
Wait, hold on. It just. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like we take that one step back to the deodorant thing, right?
Yeah.
What was it like? Because they keyed on a niche, and then they drove it home so quickly, scaled so fast. What was that thing that connected it all together?
Well, I think that the brand that they developed felt really authentic, you know, and it was like, hey, we're not trying to, um, sell you something that you don't need or convince you of something that you don't want. But it's like, hey, you're already using a certain product, and this is just different and better because it identifies with what your beliefs are. So like you are, you go to yoga, you like buy organic food, but you're using a secret deodorant that's got all this shit in it, and
Right.
for a little bit more money you can have a product that like also kind of conforms or makes more whole your identity of yourself. So
Right.
now it's just one more thing that's like aligned with who you want to be and who you think you are.
Sure.
um, and I think that's really powerful because we're all just looking to um, you know be okay, right? And so we have maybe these visions of who we are, who we want to be, and from a product standpoint you can find those people and put those products in there to help actualize that.
Right. Right. Now you are like the king of like helping brands scale, right? So like,
Mhm.
what's the difference? Like, what is it about building a brand, right? Because a lot of people sell stuff all over the internet, right? And they
Yeah.
sell, widgets, whatever it is. But creating the brand and making that brand powerful after, so you can actually leverage and go horizontal, not just be focused on one product, but a whole SKU of products, once you build that brand. Um,
um,
talk to me about that.
yeah, that's a really good. I'm trying to like actually just pick up some I've got some notes that are here from just a really great presentation that a friend of mine, Babak Azad, gave. He's the guy who scaled Beachbody from like 100 million to $1 billion,
Dude.
like running their media. But basically, is talking about like what's that story, that people have in their head already, right?
Mhm.
um, and then how do you help position that product to align with that story that they have in their mind.
Right.
And there's this just the huge number of brands out there that you can think of that really fall flat on the promise that they're making. And then you want to be able to have something that is um, that really is that people see and say, hey, yeah, that's me. That's reflective of like the story that I want to tell to the world about who I am.
Mhm.
And so people are always looking at integrating additional things there that they align with that help tell that story about who they
Sure.
are. Yeah. And
Sure.
then they have a connection to it, whether it be like emotional and in a way where like that identification is really really important.
So what is, I mean, so Straw House, is there, if, what type of clients are you guys looking to partner with? And are you guys still taking on clients today?
Yeah,
New?
yeah. So like the way that our business works is a little bit different from like a traditional like an agency, right? So we consider ourselves a venture growth company because we're deploying our capital in terms of growing these other companies. We
Uh-huh.
work with about 20 or so different companies at any given time, but we look at it like a portfolio. So we're always trying to like optimize our portfolio of clients. So sometimes like our model works well with companies. Sometimes it doesn't work well, and then we kind of part ways and say, hey, we tried this. We weren't getting the results that we were all hoping that we would get.
Right.
So we're always looking for companies and products at scale, companies that we can tell a story around, companies that have like appropriate margin to satisfy, spending enough to acquire a customer through prospecting. I mean, that's a big thing. If you only have a 20% margin on your product and you're trying to outbid somebody that has like a 50 or 60% margin, I mean, you're just not going to have the amount of money to be able to spend on, beating them in the advertising auction.
Right.
So like that's something that we look at. Yeah, we're always like constantly trying to optimize for companies that will be able to scale. We'll run into businesses where we'll take somebody on and then they'll maybe run into some supply chain issues, or maybe they just won't be as aggressive as wanting to grow really big. Maybe they're happy with more lifestyle oriented business. So we'll, kind of slowly, like we'll transition those companies out and we'll bring new companies in. We probably test, you know, something like maybe 6 or 8 new companies a month.
Okay.
So
Out of,
right? And
out of the 6 or 8, do you end up moving forward with all 6 or 8, or are you just testing to see what the market's?
we usually will move forward with like 30% or like a third of them. So like, you know, 2/3 won't quite be where we need them to be, but a third of them will. And then like our average engagement with the company might run anywhere from like 6 months to like, you know, I think we've got some of our longest running clients like a year and a half right now.
Yeah.
So it depends on the size of the market. So if we can scale really quickly and get deep penetration into that market, we might be like, you know, really penetrate and kind of saturate that market fairly quickly based on our ability to scale media. Um, and then if that company isn't able to release new products to continue, you know, driving that customer acquisition, then it'll kind of like lag off for us. One of the things that we're looking at is like, how do we, you know, better support companies to increase their CLTV over time? So like once you get a customer, how do you keep that customer and then garner more value from them?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that like everybody in our space focuses on new customers and acquisition, but as media prices get higher
Right.
and competition gets higher, it's like, hey, now you've got a customer. How do you amaze those people and keep them happy?
So that's like actually a great segue, because I'd love to find out more about, you know, because in our business as well, right? You know, it's all residual income, but we look at ways to add more value and help monetize them even further later down the line with more products and services that they can utilize. How do you do that? And are you just offering them a new potential product, or I mean, what are you guys utilize as far as tactics to help monetize that long term?
Yeah, so that's not something that we're like super competent or deep in. That's an area that we're moving to. But you know, really, what we've seen companies that we worked with who have been successful with that is that they're really good at providing an ongoing relationship with their customer.
Got it.
So whether that be through content or whether that be through you know, kind of related products or things that customer might find interesting, they're able to maintain a relationship where they feel like they're still getting value even after the conversion.
Right.
And in a way that's like not disingenuous, like not that they're just getting warmed up to buy some even bigger package,
Right.
but in a way where they're like, hey, you know, we care about you. We think that you might be interested in this. And then really just providing like amazing service.
Right.
Like just going way beyond what you think that you would need to do. We've got one company that has this, they sell a product, they have a amazing guarantee. So they're like, hey, if you don't like one of the products that we send you, it's a subscription service, just let us know and we'll send you a replacement or a new one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no need to send it back or anything like that. We'll just send you a new one.
That's awesome.
But people don't expect that, right? So people get on the phone and they start expecting like a fight. You know, they're like, they're all hopped up. They're like, I didn't like this thing, and you know, they get really and then so when they get confronted with somebody who's like, oh, hey, no problem. What's your address? We'll just send one out to you right now, free of cost, no problem.
Yeah.
And then people are like, holy, whoa. And then that makes them a customer for life, right? Like they're like, I love this company. Like that's amazing service. But sometimes as business owners, we think like, oh, well, that's going to be abused. There's going to be a huge cost to this.
Totally.
And I think that's the difference between like wanting to grow like a cash flow company versus growing a brand. You know, if you're growing a brand and something that you want to occupy that space in people's hearts and minds, you know, you're prepared to make that additional investment in customer service to be able to maintain it because you're growing it over the long haul.
No, that totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think monetizing this and doing it over the long term is obviously how most people, intelligent people that are trying to successfully grow brands and grow their business should be doing.
Yeah.
One last question before we sign off here. Now, because we're talking about, you know, you have a client, you want to offer them services or figure out a way to engage them to potentially monetize throughout the relationship. Now, if you're not selling them a product today, right? Let's just say you already sold them a product, okay? And you basically like, listen, I want to keep this guy engaged because we might want to do something later down the line. What is the best way to do that? Are you touching base with them like once a month, or maybe sending them like some sort of thank you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like different ways to do that. depending on the kind of product and depending on the niche. A friend of mine, they have a product that's in the it's a product that's kind of like better that helps somebody buy something that like is good for the environment.
Gotcha.
And it's not something that they're going to buy a lot of frequently because it is something that maybe you buy once a year.
Yeah.
But they touch them out weekly, with content that is focused around, how they can continue to do things that are going to be beneficial to the environment. And, it's in a way where like they're able to, consume this content, and then they can like sound smart to their friends or like kind of be in the know. So you're giving them a little bit of some sort of way that they can kind of continue to actualize themselves around this idea that they have themselves. So if they think that there's somebody who's like, really strong stance on the environment, and a lot of their purchasing behavior and activity is aligned around that, then you can provide them with information and knowledge that they can, be like, oh, when they're having, dinner with somebody, they can be like, did you know, blah, blah, blah. And then people can be like, oh, I didn't know that. Then they're like, so, yeah, they're like, just little things like that. I think that like, that can be additive value, and you don't have to touch them super frequently. Like, I think, again, there's this motivation in our space to email people every day. And I don't know about you, but like, that's
it's abuse.
Makes me crazy,
Yeah.
But like a weekly email, just to kind of, that's well branded, that like helps them remember, keep you kind of top of mind,
Right.
or when they need to make that next purchasing decision. Or like if you have another product, I've seen like some other really great brands that maybe do email on a more frequent basis, but they're really keeping the story of the development of the company in the forefront, as like kind of entrepreneurialism and startup culture has like grown. Like if people are part of a new and emerging brand, and they're like emotionally invested in the company and the success of that company, telling that story and then relating to them what's happening with some content as well. And then, providing them like special offers to purchase more, things like that are good opportunities.
No, I love it, man. I love it. You dropped a lot of knowledge bombs out here today, and I know that everybody that's listening is going to be wanting to get in contact with you, or at least learn more about Straw House. How can they contact you? How can they get in contact with, learn more about what you guys do, or potentially work with you?
Yeah. Feel free to shoot me an email, jason@strawhouse.com, or hit me up on Instagram, jck00. And I'm, happy to talk to people. It might take me a couple days before I get to you, but hit me up. I'm happy to chat and provide feedback or let you know what's going on.
Now, before we sign off here, what's the best piece of advice that you can offer to some entrepreneurs out there that are looking to scale brands, do things, make more money? Like, is there some good piece of advice, general piece of advice that you can offer to an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think that like, at least for me, like when you're starting out, or even when you're kind of, you got some traction, you're trying to go further, things can be hard. There's like wins, there's failures, it sounds cliche, but like every day is a new opportunity, right? So it's like, you got to be kind to yourself and recognize that you're putting in the effort and you're learning things, and that, just because you had a failure or things didn't go the way that you wanted to, doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to go the same way. So approach each day as like, what it is really a new opportunity to keep moving things forward. Really has helped me in continuing to march, because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? So being able to maintain an appropriate mindset of, that like, we're going to be able to do this over time, as opposed to like, I need to like crush and like have huge wins every day. You've been there, right? Like,
Totally.
Moving forward, as long as you're going in the right direction.
100%, man. 100%. It's fantastic advice. I'm going to see you in Napa maybe sometime soon.
Absolutely,
man. Jason, love you, man. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, and look forward to seeing you again.